You're now watching the second interview with Marc Hassenzahl. Marc Hassenzahl is a professor at the Folkwang University in Germany. Marc is doing research in the positive, affective and motivational aspects of user experience and experience design. And today he'll tell us about how we can apply these insights when we're designing products. How can we design products with experience in mind? We're used to thinking about technology and functions and features when designing products. And now you said we should think about experience when designing products. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah. Okay. I think the most basic thing is, if you talk about experiences, it's more, you have to think a little bit more about the why of product use. Mm-hmm. So normally you have a core function, you have a mobile phone, making a telephone call is its core function, and we never question that. We just put it out and leave it to the people to figure out how they use this telephone call. But then there are many occasions where a telephone call works just fine, and others where we have to use it, but it doesn't work. I think a very good example is this work on technology mediated intimacy, where you want to feel close to somebody, you have to use the mobile phone sometimes, but it can be very awkward because you don't have really stories to tell. Telephone is a conversation-based technology, so you have to tell stories, but I don't have them. The only thing I want to feel closer to you. Mm-hmm. And this is also a kind of communication, and this is a certain type of experience. And if we would design with those in mind, we would rather start off, why is using this technology? What is the reason for that? I want to feel close to somebody. What are the requirements for closeness here? What is it exactly? What are the stories that people make up? What are the practices they already have to feel close? And then we could take all that stuff and try to put it into a technology, so that if you have it, it kind of tells the story. I'm here for your relatedness experiences. And that's for me, that's the difference. It's much more looking at the actual needs of people, and not need in the sense of people don't have a need to make a telephone call. They have a need to feel close to somebody. They have a need to be competent. They have a need to be popular. They have a need maybe to help each other. They have a need to compete with others, but they don't have a need to make a telephone call.
How do we find out what they need? It must be very individual.
As a psychologist, I would say not. It's something in between. I think the basic needs, the basic categories of needs we have, or the basic motivations, are for all people the same. So it's not a question. I mean, in psychology, they have these lists of 3 or 5 or 10 or 7 needs, starting from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we basically know that people have to be social. They want to improve themselves. They're looking for meaning. I mean, that's all there. Mm-hmm. So it's not that individual in that sense. The problem is more that people act out or play out this need in very different ways. So it's a huge gap between knowing that somebody cares for relatedness and actually finding the right spot and the right story to deliver a relatedness experience to somebody. And that's a huge gap. Yeah. So it's highly individual in one sense. But I think we can find, based on the general needs, find archetypal stories we all could relate to and we would all understand.
What is the best way to find out about
Asking people. Let them tell the stories. I just read in a blog, I think it has an advertising market research blog, and the guy, I can't remember the name, made the point that it's futile to ask people about products and how they relate to it, because they don't want to talk about it, but they really like to talk about themselves. And that's, we're humans, we want to tell stories about product use and so on. And if you ask people who love their iPhone, ask them, why do you like it? And we'll come up with a story of a certain, special story they connect with that gadget. And this actually defines it. And if you ask them later, rate it on a scale from 1 to 10, how good is it? They will, in their mind, try to come up with these stories, and then they base their judgment on these kind of things. So this is very central, and we just have to talk to each other to find that out.
Okay. The way you define experience seems to be rather deep, because when I just hear experience design, it sounds rather shallow. Like, oh, let's design a roller coaster. It's amusement.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
But for you, it's more than that.
Enjoyment is very central to it. So we in the field, we have this discussion about positive and negative experiences and so on. But I think for me, from a design perspective, it's very obvious that you want to design enjoyable, or I would say worthwhile experience at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So maybe with a roller coaster ride is a good example, because it's not always pleasant. It's not pleasant the whole time, but taken together, when I'm done with it, I can tell a nice story about this roller coaster, and then it becomes worthwhile, a positive experience. So the amusement is in there, but I think by connecting it to real human needs, and connecting it to meaning, it won't be shallow at all. So it won't be rather going straight to the core of what a human is and how you define yourself and so on. So let me give you an example. A variant of the roller coaster in technology at the moment is a 3D television. So this is for me, that's shallow amusement. It's like, you can have it, it's in 3D, it looks good, you can be stimulated by that, you can show it around and so on, but the thing itself doesn't really create much more than a shallow wow effect.
You don't have new stories to tell or new feelings.
No, the only story you have to tell, I just spent 5,000 euros on all that gear. Come visit me at my home to sit around with silly glasses and to have a 3D experience, which is not what I would be after. But if you, for example, this in technology mediated intimacy, that devices that connects lovers, it just goes it goes to the core of what we are, and it should be enjoyable, but it's still also, there's a lot of reflection about it. There will be problematic situations, and it will create, these kind of products will create all kinds of discussions for couples, for example. What is closeness for you, what is for me, do we want to have it supported by a device, all this stuff. And for me, this debate is a good indicator of that you're doing something meaningful that moves people. You won't have this discussion about 3D television. It would be just, do you want to spend that money on it? Yes, I want. So okay, but you won't have deeper. It won't be getting into your life in that sense. And I think with all this experience designs I have in mind, you would always create that situation where you have to take care a bit, because you're producing something meaningful, which is potentially also damaging in that sense. So you were asking me about pieces of technology, I think, which are experiential in a way. And although it's hard to come up with some examples, this is one of my favorite pieces of technology. It's basically an MP3 player. But what you can do with it, you can do mixing with it. You can act like a DJ with it and play dance music. The music is on the hard disk in the machine, and you have everything with you to crash a party. And I think it's better than a normal iPod, because it tells a clear story of what I can do with it. It tells a story of me as a hero on that party. It tells a story of popularity, and it also involves a lot of competence, because somehow I need to mix the tracks together. That's why I think it's at least a bit geared toward experience, the product. And here's another example of an experiential product. Here it's more about staying connected or close to somebody. It's a lampshade. If you switch it on, it reads, "Don't forget me." And I gave it to my wife as a present. Whenever I'm not at home and she switches on the light, she might think of me and maybe even give me a call.
So in the first place, how did you get into user experience and experience design? How did you start?
I started out I was trained as a psychologist. I was actually very much interested in applied cognitive psychology, and I had a professor at my University, who was in software ergonomics, how it was called, usability. And that's where I started out. There's a little anecdote I always like to tell. It was, we were in that project doing slides for other people, ergonomically optimized slides. So everything, was exactly done so that you can take it up with your memory and perceive everything correctly. The right fonts, the right sizes, everything. And I had this experience where we did that for somebody, and he came back and said, it's all well done, but people found the slides very ugly. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started to think that there's maybe a little bit more to it than just optimizing information processing of here, and maybe there's a little bit more to it in a sense of also the values that people have behind that. I mean, optimizing efficiency and effectiveness is not a goal in itself. I think it's more, sometimes you need it, sometimes not. I think it's more something that was brought to the table by the organizations themselves. So they want us to be efficient and effective, and they tend to present it as if this would be our actual values. But I think human values are a little bit different. I mean, for example, we care about being competent, but that's not only that's not captured by efficiency and effectiveness. Maybe it's an important goal or an important subcategory of it in that. But feeling competent also means challenges. It means, you can fail sometimes. It also means risk and stuff like that. All things that are completely excluded from a usability point of view. So I got aware of that. Then I went to Siemens to work there in a user interface design department. And then, this all started in the sense of, what could we add to usability? Usability is important, but what could we add to make technology more humane in that sense?
But how did it all start, the research field? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has its own opinion or own view of
your
that.
Opinion.
For me, this is the book that started for me, like Patrick Jordan's Designing Pleasurable Products. And I think he was a designer in Philips then. And, he just called it the new human factors. And he made clear that there's more to it than just plain usability. Yeah. So that was for me a very important book then. And we had this together with Andrew Monk and Mark Blythe. I had a workshop on, then we called it Funology, the science of enjoyment. That was very important for me. And I think also John McCarthy's and Peter Wright's book, Technology as Experience, where they make the point, that, or they also lay the foundation of experience as a story and how technology can mediate these stories was very important. And then this is very highly cited, and a lot of people refer to that as a background to experience design. I think it had been a bit unfortunate. I wrote a review in 2006 together with Noam Chaktinsky of the field, and we called it a user experience research agenda, and tried to summarize all the different things. Today, I think it was a bit unfortunate to call it user experience, because this term was already taken up by industry in that sense. Yeah. I mean, it originated somewhere in the 90s, and it's credited to Don Norman, and it was always very related to industry work, and now we try to come up with a little different perspective, but we still carry the whole weight of that of that term. That causes a lot of confusion, I think.
But in our next interview, you get the chance to tell about your way of user experience and experience design and how we can apply that.
I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
You can also have a look at the chapter Marc has written at interactiondesign.org, and here you can also find more chapters written by thought leaders and inventors, and you can find videos as this one as well. Thank you so much for your time and interest.